Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Educator Experience podcast. My name is Sally Carter, and again, for the second week in a row, I apologize for my voice in the introduction here. I am still recovering from COVID. I have lost my sense of smell, which has been an interesting experience. Yeah, all of a sudden, losing one of your senses is pretty strange. And you just naturally go to smell things or your dinner or anything, right? Just a normal reaction to smell things, I guess. And I can't do that. And it's just weird. It's super weird, but I'm on the mend. Hopefully for the next introduction, we'll be back to my normal sounding self. I'm really excited for today's podcast to share with everyone because we're actually joined all the way from Brazil. Ndzaba Mngomezulu is an art instructor and founder of the Art Creators Academy, who spent nearly a decade away from drawing, then rebuilt his skills from scratch within a single year. He now coaches returning hobbyists and absolute beginners using the same fundamentals first approach that transformed his own practice. And he's here to share why the path back to creativity is shorter than most artists think. So, throughout our conversation, Ndzaba reflects on the responsibility of educators, not to produce perfect outcomes per se, but to create environments where students feel safe to try, fail, and grow. He challenges the myth of talent and instead emphasizes the role of the teacher in unlocking potential that already exists, which is really neat. He shares what actually happens when you lose a skill and why most people struggle to return to creative pursuits and how to rebuild confidence step by step. Who hasn't lost a skill throughout their adulthood and then, thought about it every once in a while? What would it be like to get back to that creative thing that I once felt passionate about, right? So creativity isn't about the end result. It's about the act of showing up and just being and creating. And really at the heart of this episode is a powerful idea that teaching is an act of service, one that requires patience, empathy, and a belief in what others are capable of becoming, which I think is really beautiful. Now, I'm excited to share that Ndzaba is currently running the Drawing Comeback Challenge. It's a 5-day experience designed to help participants reconnect with their creativity and build a sustainable drawing practice. So we've included all the necessary links for the challenge and to reach out to his academy and to him as well. So check it out. I invite you, use this as your aha moment or your sign to really reconnect with the creative side of yourself, and get back into drawing with a fabulous group of people. So without further ado, let's get to it with Ndzaba Mngomezulu.
Being an educator is one heck of a lonely journey, but every step holds a story, an experience that shapes how we teach, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Educator Experience. I'm your host, Sally Carter, and together we'll explore the moments that define us as educators. Through authentic conversations and shared experiences, we're building a community that connects, reflects, and inspires, all while breaking down barriers in education, one story at a time. You are not alone. Let's grow together.
So, Nzaba, where are you joining from today? What's Brasilia time?
Brazilian time, it is exactly 2:59 p.m. right now. I live in the southern part of Brazil, which is called Rio Grande do Sul. So that's where I am. I know most people know Rio de Janeiro, that's Rio, but there's more than one, and I'm in the other one.
That's so cool. So, what brought you to this podcast?
I wanted to share my experience with your audience and especially educators, just in how it's possible to return after abandoning your art for a long while, and that can resonate a lot with even the people that you want to teach, because how many adults are probably sitting in cubicles unfulfilled in a part of their lives that they abandoned when they were children for a plethora of reasons, right? So
100%.
Just here to share that story with your audience and hope people get a lot of value out of it.
I absolutely think people will connect with this. And you're so right. People just live their lives losing their passion,
Yeah.
right? What could it look like if they had found that or reconnected with that, even if it's lost for a little while? It can be found. So,
Yeah.
Ndzaba, tell me a little bit about you, about where you come from, your history. Like, how did you get into education and where you are now?
It's a funny story because well, maybe not funny in that you'll laugh, but it's interesting. I didn't expect it to turn out the way it did. I was born and raised in the Kingdom of Eswatini or Swaziland, which is in Southern Africa. And when I grew up, I was exposed to an education system that basically prioritized the more, let's say, conservative career paths, right? So art was always viewed as optional, whereas the mathematics and the English and all the physics, those were the priorities. And it also made one feel as if then art was not as important because I'm sure you know that even the grading of art then is not as high as the other subjects. And so subconsciously you get trained in the system to just make it to feel as if this is not something as important that as it actually is to you. And then there's also the fact that like I grew up in a third world country, so it makes sense that my parents were more concerned about the conservative route and having a viable career, sustainable income, things like that. It makes sense growing up in that kind of environment. I'd argue that's not necessarily the case today with things like AI disrupting and layoffs happening across industries. You know, I'd say it's way less riskier to pursue art, but I digress. As I continue to further my studies into high school and all, I would draw comics. I'd like telling stories. It was one of the reasons why I liked to draw. And I was also exploring music. So those are things that were happening at the same time. I definitely grew into a phase of doing the music thing a lot more, wanting to release music professionally. And so as I then went into my university studies, then I was pursuing something conservative still, but on the side, I was doing the music stuff. And I told myself, this is what I'm going to do. It wasn't until the end of 2024 and by now, I'm already here in Brazil, married to my wife, and we have a beautiful baby girl. And at this point of my life, I'm at a church event, and I feel this nudging, a pulling, a sense of calling back to something that I left many years ago. Because all these years I was dabbling with it, you know, I was a little sketch during the meetings or something like that, but never anything serious. And I just felt the conviction to come back to it with a level of dedication and devotion like never before. And I made that decision and I went with it. And I was so surprised to discover all the things that make drawing so easy and practical for anyone, like regardless of how old you are, whether you're starting or whether you're coming back after a long time. I discovered all the ways to make it easier, and that just makes you enjoy it more, and you still get to see results in a short space of time. And might I add, with like all the responsibilities that I had around me because it wasn't as
Yeah.
if I left my family and then was just devoted to art school. No, I figured out a sustainable routine that kept me trying and still kept me with the people that I loved. And so teaching for me then became the natural next step because once I got to this point where I was enjoying to draw again and I felt like a child, you know, back then just drawing and expressing myself. I wanted this feeling I had for somebody else. And
Mm.
so that's what led me to then want to teach and share all the ways that I can help once aspiring artists fall back in love with drawing again.
This is so exciting. So it's like you kind of took a little bit of a break from it and then came back full force, super passionate.
Yeah.
So what allowed you to kind of come back to it. What was that spark for you?
It was really that conviction, right? I felt like God was telling me to go back to it. And it was a surprise because, like I said, I'm Mr. Music, music, music. Even though I had a job, I was like, all right, okay, but then another way that I'm going to express myself artistically at home is just making music. So it was such a unexpected turn of events. But what I think happens, Sally, when we choose to, abandon our gifts and our passions, it eats us up little by little. It's not so evident, but throughout the years, you're wondering what's missing, even though there's so many other good things going on in your life. And I feel like that was also what was happening to me, and it just reached a point where I'm trying to know, what do I need to be doing in my life at this point, walking in my purpose and everything. And I found that teaching is a lot more fulfilling than if I were just making music, because I get to engage with people. I get to develop relationships and also challenge myself to be a better communicator and understander of other people, a better servant, actually, right? When I'm now teaching people, I feel like it has way more of an impact than if I was just releasing music, which does have an impact in its own way. I just feel more fulfilled walking in this lane.
That it's the interaction that in itself can also fuel creativity,
Mm,
right? And
yeah,
just to be able to inspire others and hold space or create that safe space for others to be creative and get
yeah,
weird and do all of the things, right?
right.
It's such a neat thing. So you started an art academy, didn't you?
Yes, I
How did
did.
that how did that play in?
So, I'm somebody who I really want to make sure that I am looking after my family, of course, but also doing what I love at the same time. I don't think you have to choose either or. I believe it can be both and then this led me down a path of just like learning more about financial literacy, and all these things. And so I figured that opening an academy would be the better route for me, because then it's a platform where I'm able to teach lots of other students who have this problem, or if they are beginner artists that are just struggling to improve, and they make work that they're ashamed to show anybody, and I just help them make work that they'd be proud of, like in a short span of time. It became deeper as things developed because I realized that I could be touching a generation of people who are going to just impact the world in a way that we don't expect. Because something that we don't think about is how art shapes everything around us. The clothes you and I are wearing, the seats that we're currently using. All of it had to be designed and drawn by somebody. The headsets I'm using, the movies you watch, the phones that we use, and movies that we go and watch, cartoons, etc. You name it. Like, the world is shaped by art. And with all this change that's coming with AI and everything, I'm personally, because I know it's not a popular opinion right now where AI is concerned with art, I think that if people just take the moment to stop and consider what it can do to help us become better artists, make us think deeper and go deeper than what we think we're capable of becoming. I think artists have the potential to shape the world in a way that we cannot imagine. So that's what eventually like inspired the Art Creators Academy. It became a bigger vision than just helping people get back on their feet.
I love this. And can you tell me about your students? So, do you have students of all ages? Like, because you seem so connected to revisiting or refinding your
Mhm.
passion that I can see mature students and people of all ages who are just really want to immerse themselves in their art
Yeah. No, my
or in
my
creation.
students, yeah, my students are definitely adults, and mainly people who may have abandoned or, you
Mhm.
know, disqualified themselves. I know that there are plenty of people who like were artistically inclined, but for whatever reason told themselves that I could never draw. They might have the eye for things and that design kind of taste when it comes to art stuff, but just never thought they could do it themselves. Only to find that like through research scientifically, anybody can draw. That was the biggest takeaway that I got from learning under an art instructor myself, and then also doing the research. It's such a more practical skill than it is talent or something that you're born with and born to do. And so, yeah, those are the people I help, and it's an online school, so it's not an in-person thing. Everything's virtual. I basically help people from all walks of life that, at the very least, can speak English, and then I can help.
This is so interesting. I think it it's funny that you say it's not necessarily a talent, but it can be developed. Well, I happen to create a great stick figure, Ndzaba.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm a hell of a stick figure person. But my mom is an artist, and I've always just reveled in the beauty of what she can create.
Mm,
As a family, we collect art, and I can't even express like what it's like to stand in front of a painting and just
mm,
feel emotion. But
yeah.
like it's the same for music, right? If you're hearing
Hmm.
something, you feel emotion, you see something or whatever it is, a building. But you're right. Art shapes the world. And
Yeah.
to be able to have an academy that really fosters that is really beautiful. So, my question to you would be how do you bridge the gap for someone thinking that they can't be an artist? Someone like me who really wants to explore it a little bit.
Start with the lies that we tell ourselves mentally, or rather that we've been taught to believe, right? And one of those things is the whole aspect of talent and passion. I do believe that, there are those who have a natural inclination to doing things. So I don't disregard talent completely. But at the same time, your gift, if you want to call it that, or your talent, isn't going to do the work for you. It's always going to require discipline. It's like there are some people who, genetically speaking, may have been born with a greater amount of weight that they've had to deal with. But if they run the same practice, the same treadmill, and do the same reps, they will get the results that they put in. And so, just demystifying that aspect of art and who can draw and who has permission to draw. Anyone has permission to draw. I can imagine you, Sally, in your youth, probably drew a lot. And
When I was young, yeah, for
yeah,
sure. For sure.
and so part of the reason why, you feel disqualified as well is just because of something that's sadly been in the education system for a long time, right? Where it's more like they want to create workers than thinkers. And so you find that what happens is, as the years go by, a lot of people who you were in the same classroom with, just doing creative stuff and being creative and expressive, are now being molded and shaped into people who don't really consider or think about that anymore, all in the name of a safe, viable career. But just like I'm telling you, I know a student who's not mine, but just like from when I was seeing on the internet, is one of the academies that are really renowned in the art space, the New Masters Academy. They started drawing at around age 58 or 60. And if
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you look at the artwork that she's made by going through the curriculum, just going through the basics, by basically giving herself the permission to try, right? I think that's something that we need to start with. And with yourself, Sally, is like give yourself the permission
Mission.
to try.
Yes.
And you'd be surprised that just by going through the steps, like going through the principles that make drawing easy for you. It's also about finding like your way of doing it. We always want to know the right way, right? And it's not to say that there isn't one. Like there are underlying principles in every field that we practice and learn, right? But I see this as foundation. Like one person will have a house, same foundation as another, but how it's going to look, the material, whether it's wood, concrete, is completely different from this one, and how many floors, etc. So once you know the right way to get started, you build upon that in the way you interpret art and in the way you want to express yourself. And
Right.
yeah, and the most important thing is not even about, the final artwork you produce, but the process. Because a lot of people get caught up in wanting to make beautiful looking drawings, which I mean, who doesn't, right? Only that's not the point. The point is the joy of drawing, and the joy of drawing is hidden in the process. And
Mm.
so, just the fact that you came up today and put something down on your page, whatever it is, according to your capacity, it does a lot for you and makes you a better artist than most people you might think are better than you actually.
That's so inspiring. How neat would it be if this conversation inspired people to just reconnect and break down their walls a little bit and like just get back to the page or whatever it
Exactly.
is that they once connected with. I do say I'm not an artist per se, but I do consider myself a creative person.
Mhm.
And that is the reason that I am so incredibly passionate about business because to
Mm.
me, business can be art. As in,
Yeah.
there may not be a correct one way of doing things, the idea is that we all have different ways and we can collaborate and together we can hopefully come up with the best possible idea or
Yes.
yeah, just the creative aspect within business itself just gets me excited. So
Wow.
yeah, just so I view my way of viewing art is a little bit different than the traditional sense because I see art. Can you hear my dog squeaking toy?
Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's actually making
They're
like this.
literally just having a blast back here. Just give me one
Yeah. It's making the part of this conversation more
right?
emotional. It's
He's like,
adding,
"Yes,
that
girl,
weight.
preach." That's so funny. If you could see them playing, they're so cute. Every even bad idea, which isn't a bad idea, but
Mhm.
it's just a stepping stone,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
In our minds and triggering things in our minds to get to another destination. So that's how I personally have always viewed myself as a creative in
Mhm.
creating that space in my classroom for that open-mindedness to
Yeah.
kind of happen and flourish. And what else would you suggest for someone like me? I consider myself creative,
Mhm.
but not an artist in the traditional
In traditional
sense.
sense,
What
yeah.
what would some stepping stones maybe be for me to connect with that side of myself?
I'd say it would be taking what you already like to do, which is
Okay.
business, right? And playing around with ideas where it comes to maybe you want to put a logo or whether, you're setting a class up and you could just doodle or sketch like five people in the classroom. Like let's say you want to teach something and you want to create an analogy. And just for you and yourself on your notepad, this analogy is like with word pictures. And you draw those little word pictures on your page. It's not something you have to show anybody because drawing first and foremost is for you before it's for the other person. And just for you to get comfortable expressing yourself that way. I think just for the fact that you hone into your creativity, because I believe that like we were created to be creative. So when you speak about business and creativity, it makes so much sense. To think out of the box requires creativity. And because you lean into that, I think you have a better chance of discovering new things about yourself, yeah, in the form of you of expressing yourself artistically. Like let's say you want to launch a new project and you might give it to a graphic designer that already has experience, but just like putting down into your thoughts, like, this is kind of what I see in my head. Could you help me to visualize that more? That's still a way of expressing yourself artistically. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be, the illustration that I'm going to hang up for somebody to see. It doesn't have to be the portrait of my mom or, pictures of my dogs. You can just lean into the things that you already like to do, the things that drive you, and play around with it because there's no barrier of entry when it comes to drawing. Anybody can pick up a pencil and paper and draw. And so
Yeah, or
even
a
that is
computer
drawing.
or anything. Yeah.
Exactly. And I believe that the more you connect with that, the more it might inspire you to try different things artistically. So I would always suggest to anyone who wants to get started or wants to explore that is just to make it as easy for themselves as possible. Like lean into the things you already like to do and play around with that and take it from there.
I love that. This is also inspiring me to invite more actual art creations in my
Mm,
classroom too as forms of expression. Like, even if we're doing an exercise on, I don't know, some marketing thing
yeah.
or campaign,
Yeah.
to allow students, or learners this space to kind of express themselves with
Mhm.
a pen and paper or however that looks to them, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to us just talking about it. and then for them to share their designs and see what that sparks for other people and how they
Yeah.
connect with that. So, yeah, because I feel like as educators, we can get in a bit of a rut. Like, this is how we've been doing things.
Yes.
This has worked. And because I'm not an artist per se, I'm not a drawer, an illustrator, I don't always consider the value of those types of exercises in my classroom.
Mm, yeah.
So this conversation has, yeah, reignited some exciting potential activities that I could include in future classes, even though it's business, right? It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what it is really at the end of the
Yeah.
day, because we're tapping into students' other sides of their brains and we're
Exactly.
having fun.
And we are exactly.
We're having fun, right? We're
Yeah.
creating a fun space. I love that. Ndzaba, what's next for you? What do you have on the horizon coming up?
Well, I recently released a book that helps this very sad people to fall in love with drawing again.
Congratulations. Okay, tell us about it. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, it's I have it here. It's called Try Again, Dream Again. How to reignite your artistic passion and keep the fire burning. And
Beautiful.
it
Keep
basically
that
goes,
fire burning. Yes.
yeah, exactly. Because one thing is like, all right, I'm motivated. I believe I can try again. Cool. But the reality is, how do you keep that momentum going in the midst of your life, responsibilities, and all those things? I believe one of the unique things that I provide for people is that I know what it's like to have responsibilities, family, things to take care of, nine to
Lived
five,
it.
you
This
name it,
was your
right?
life. Yeah.
And I've been able to find, my passion, no, rediscover rather, and get back into it with the fire I never had before and figure out the best way to keep it sustainable without sacrificing or compromising the other parts of my life, which are also important. And so the book goes into all the ways in which they can adapt a routine based on their lifestyle. Because one thing that I've noticed is true, whether on the internet or as traditional art schools, is they're designed in a traditional way whereby you have unlimited time to delve into all the lessons that you can learn. And even though you get the courses on internet and you can work at your pace, there's no guidance really to how to incorporate that into your actual life. Because when things get busy, it's easy to feel like, I'm just not taking this seriously enough. And then the inner critic, the negative voices, and you find yourself abandoning your craft again. No, I've developed a system and a program that also helps people to just have consistency in their art skills, see progress, make art they'd be proud of in a short span of time, all built around their lifestyle. So it's not just skill based, it's also lifestyle based. And I think that
Yeah.
approach helps a lot of people big time.
It sounds like you're touching on a bunch of different topics. So, mindset, a big one. Mindset, attitude of oneself, how we view oneself. Yeah. In addition to the practical skills, that's really exciting. Congratulations. And what's next for your business, for your academy?
Right now, we are about to promote a 5-day challenge called the Drawing Comeback Challenge.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just going to be an experience where we'll be going over, the purpose of drawing, rediscovering that, understanding the science of drawing. I share my drawing comeback method, what I use to then go from beginner to intermediate in less than a year. And I'd love to show you my drawings like after the call if you'd love to
Love
see them.
this. Yes,
It's
yes,
to see
yes.
that.
And if you're open to us sharing some of them as well, that
Oh
would
yeah,
be
no
awesome.
problem. No, not a
Cool.
problem at all. What I like about what I'm teaching is it's stuff that I've done that works for me and I know it'll work for another person. And then from there we just go on to the next steps. Like I'd love to also make that artists can make artwork for them in some way or form. Whether they choose to pursue it professionally or whether it's a side thing, there are ways in which you can monetize it in a way that, either pays for the art material itself or gives you a new opportunity of a new career, a new life, right?
Yeah.
I feel like people are more fulfilled when they're walking in their purpose. So it's a 5-day challenge. We go through all of that. And then from there, they are able to just keep the momentum going. I share all of that.
That's so exciting. Well, I'm excited to share that. Zava, thank you so much for joining us. As we start to wind down the conversation, what is one piece of advice that you might have for Oh, this is gonna be tricky because it's going in so many different directions. What who do you think we should give advice to?
I'm leaning towards the person coming back into their art,
Okay.
the most important investment that you will ever make in your life. And investing in yourself is not investing in what people told you to, but what you know you love to do. And if you give yourself a chance, you'll be surprised how impactful your work in life will be.
That is so beautiful. What a wonderful way to wind things down. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Oh
you
my
for
gosh.
having
And
me,
for joining us
Sally.
from Brazil. That's amazing. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Ndzaba. I appreciate it. And we'll share your challenge. And yeah, let's see where we can get connected with their art. But that's
Yeah.
our passion
Um,
again.
yeah. Hopefully you as well.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because even it's a common ideation or fact in innovation, people who are innovative.
Yeah.
You are invited to explore other creative things outside of whatever business you're doing. For example, I'm learning guitar, or if you're doing some writing
Yes.
or some
Yes.
creation, because that then ties into your innovation. By being creative in any capacity, it adds to even what you're really trying to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I do believe everything's connected.
It's
I
all connected.
it all helps and just feeds into, what we're doing, us in our best form, element in our lane. And so when we welcome all of it, it just, like you said, expands our minds. I see that and I believe that too.
Minds are ready to be blown. I love
Let's
that.
go.
Well, thank you again for joining us. I'm so appreciative of your time, and I look forward to connecting.
All right. Thank you too, Sally. I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Educator Experience. We hope you're walking away feeling connected, inspired, and just a little bit more supported on your journey. Ready to go a little bit deeper? Join the Educator Experiences community and check out our courses and workshops specifically designed to support new educators as they navigate the ups, downs, and everything in between. You'll find it all at educatorexperiences.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a fellow educator and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we're building a vibrant community rooted in support and connection. See y'all next Monday.